Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Imagine for a second waking up to sudden, deafening screams outside your window. You look out, expecting to see your normal street, but instead, there's a roaring, dark river violently rushing right past your front door. Naturally, you'd think, oh, a catastrophic water main break, or maybe a devastating mudslide following a storm, right? Well, recently there's been this viral rumor floating around the internet about a massive, bizarre city flood involving 151 tons of whiskey. It sounds completely unbelievable, kind of like a dark urban fairy tale. But the truth of what actually happened in this historic disaster is far stranger and tragically very real. Because that dark, churning wave crashing through the city streets, it wasn't an internet myth, and it definitely wasn't a scene from a Hollywood blockbuster. It's the reality of literally one of the most bizarre and deadly urban disasters in recorded history. I mean, would you ever, in your wildest imagination, expect a deadly tidal wave to be made of beer? So, let's get into the unbelievable deluge of London 1814. To understand how a major capital city gets swallowed by a tidal wave of alcohol, we've got to travel back over 2 centuries to the bustling, densely packed, fog-covered streets of 19th century London. Now, the modern internet absolutely loves that viral whiskey deluge rumor. It's catchy, it sparks curiosity, and it spreads like wildfire. But the true disaster, the one that claimed lives and completely altered the brewing industry forever, was actually a colossal flood of dark, heavy London porter. It wasn't 151 tons of whiskey, it was an absolutely unfathomable amount of beer crashing through a highly populated working-class neighborhood. Moving on to the giant wooden vats inside the Muex brewery. Walk with me here, conceptually, through the heavy wooden doors of this place. The Muex brewery wasn't just some small local tavern operation. No, this was a massive, cutting-edge industrial powerhouse located smack in the heart of London. And the beating heart of their entire operation was staggering. It was 6 stories tall. We are not talking about those little steel kegs you see at your local pub today. These were monumental, towering wooden vats holding the brewery's famous porter. Seriously, imagine a modern apartment building, completely hollowed out, constructed of incredibly thick wooden staves, bound together by these massive iron hoops, and filled to the absolute brim with heavy, fermenting liquid. Just think about the sheer physics of that for a second. We're talking hundreds of thousands of gallons of beer, suspended directly above crowded, narrow city streets. The immense pressure pushing relentlessly against those wooden walls was basically a looming physical threat, just hovering right over the heads of unsuspecting London residents who were, just going about their daily lives. Which brings us to the chain reaction and a fatal mistake. And this brilliantly, or rather tragically, illustrates the core problem. With pressure like that, the brewery was effectively a ticking time bomb built right into the city's architecture. And, well, every bomb has a fuse. In the pre-disaster phase, a giant multi-ton iron hoop actually slipped off one of the primary vats. That is a blaring red alert warning sign of structural failure. But incredibly, the workers noticed it and basically just ignored the anomaly. To them, it was just a common enough occurrence at the time. Then came October 17th, 1814. The pressure finally became just too much. The fatal explosion occurred as this massive vat violently burst wide open, and mere seconds later, the sheer concussive force created a catastrophic chain reaction, shattering the surrounding vats one by one. The result of that chain reaction? Over 300,000 gallons of dark porter surging out of the brewery in a matter of seconds. To put that into perspective, just imagine the deafening roar of bursting wood, the explosive release of all that pent-up pressure, and an unstoppable, towering wall of liquid suddenly freed from its confines, hurtling outward with the force of a literal freight train. That leads us to the chaos in the streets, a true tsunami of porter. The immediate aftermath for the surrounding neighborhood of St. Giles was, frankly, apocalyptic. What followed wasn't just a heavy spill, it was a roaring tsunami tearing right through the narrow alleys. This wave smashed directly into surrounding homes. The immense kinetic energy completely obliterated solid brick walls, instantly trapping terrified residents in this surging, dark liquid. And keep in mind, many of these folks were living in low-lying basement apartments or incredibly crowded tenements. There was absolutely no warning, no time to run. Eyewitnesses described unimaginable scenes of panic. Entire buildings literally collapsed under the sheer weight of the beer.
People were swept away in the chaotic current. You had rescue workers frantically digging through soggy, collapsed brick and timber wreckage, wading waist-deep in intoxicating, suffocating porter, just desperately trying to reach victims trapped beneath all that rubble. It's truly a horrifying image.
So, what happened next? Let's look at the act of God and the aftermath.
As the floodwaters eventually receded into the city's drains, they left behind a neighborhood in absolute ruins and highlighted a really shocking disparity. On one side, we have the devastating human toll: 8 innocent lives tragically lost, families completely destroyed, homes leveled to the ground. But on the other side, the company's consequence. The Muex brewery completely avoided bankruptcy and just continued operating as if nothing had happened. So the crucial point here is you have to ask yourself, how is that even legally possible given the glaring warning signs that were so obviously ignored?
Well, the answer lies in a baffling courtroom decision. Following the official investigation into the catastrophic explosion, authorities legally ruled the event an act of God. Yeah, you heard that right. No negligence was found. No criminal charges were ever filed for ignoring that slipped iron hoop. The justice system of 1814 essentially shrugged its shoulders, cleared this highly profitable brewery of all wrongdoing, and left the victims' families with absolutely zero compensation. While justice certainly wasn't served in the courtroom that day, the legacy of the flood did eventually force some much-needed change. Initially, sure, the brewery continued operations for years to recoup their financial losses. But over time, safety regulations in the brewing industry slowly began to evolve. Engineers and safety inspectors finally woke up to the extreme, unacceptable danger of these towering wooden structures. And ultimately, giant wooden vats of this massive magnitude became a thing of the past, permanently replaced by safer, stronger, and much more modern storage methods. So as we wrap up this explainer, the 1814 Great London Beer Flood really stands as one of history's most terrifying, surreal, and tragic mysteries. It's a very real reminder of industrial hubris and the completely unpredictable nature of progress. And I just want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If a roaring river suddenly appeared outside your house right now, would you ever imagine it could be beer?